Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of the Go To Podcast with me, your host, Anthony DiDomenico, coming to you every week. And we're available on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. We're also available on YouTube. Subscribe at the Go To Pod on YouTube. It's youtube.com at the Go To Pod. And you can get the full videos there. And I want to apologize for the technical difficulties we've had the last few weeks. There has been some difficulties with the videos. I do apologize about that. And hopefully this week we've fixed that, and we will fix that. As I'm using the front face camera on my phone. Not that you have to know all the ins and outs of how we do the podcast, but yeah, it's I even tried mirroring today with my mirroring device, and it keeps on going over to my television in my um in my living room. So anyway, I think we've got it under control. And if you're watching a clip and you're watching a video, then hey, I did it. I am not as dumb as I look. So all right, so let's get into this week's episode of the Go To Podcast. I hope everybody had an amazing week. I discovered a song that I haven't heard in probably 20 years. And this song came out when I was in high school. And I don't think I really heard it until I graduated. Probably that summer. I saw the video on MTV, and when I heard the song, I was just like hooked. And it's called Once Upon a Time by Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise. It was originally released on January 20th, 1996. Actually, that's my dad's 41st birthday. That's how long ago that was released. And it's this song, it is so goddamn good. If you haven't heard this song, please go look up Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise, Once Upon a Time. He has got such a soulful voice. And the backstory of the band's great too. Like, Robert Bradley, he's blind, and he would sing outside the local stores. And that's how the band came together. Like, these musicians found him and they started recording music. And, I they didn't really get like that popular, but the video was on MTV. And I remember when I heard the song, I was like, oh my God, I have to have this album. And I remember going to a record store. I was going to a record store with my friend Chris and explaining to the guy, like, I think it was at like what record store was it? It was in the mall. And I remember like just trying to explain this song to him. I was like, I was singing like Once Upon a Time when I was in high school. I said he mentions like Otis Redding, he mentions Marvin Gaye. It sounds like a song that could have been from like the 60s and 70s. I go, he's blind. He's got hair like Dennis Rodman because it looked like it was bleach blonde in the video. And finally, he's like, "Oh, Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise." I'm like, I guess. And he showed me the cover, and it was him. So I was like, "Oh, perfect! I found it." And I don't know why. Like the other day, just like I'm sitting at work and I just started like singing it to myself. It came into my head, and I immediately went to YouTube and got the video and was watching the video. And I listened to the song like 8 times a day now. It's like back in rotation. The song is so good. I absolutely love it. It really is like to me, it's one of my all time favorite songs, a go to song, if you will. And that was the great thing about MTV back in the day. You saw videos of bands that you probably wouldn't have normally listened to. And, you discovered different music that you liked. And you went to the record store. Imagine that, a record store. And you walked around and you looked at all these CDs. And if something just looked interesting, sometimes you bought it. And the same thing, like, or you had like places where you could go actually listen to music for a little bit. the employees had their picks. It's and that's I totally miss that. I totally miss record stores. I totally miss Tower Records, Sam Goody, those stores. I think this was actually at a Sam Goody. I was explaining this to the guy. It was a Sam Goody in Sunrise Mall, which is no longer there. Both things. Sunrise Mall is not there, and Sam Goody. This is gonna be a nostalgia show. There's gonna be a lot of nostalgia on this episode. Just because of what I was listening to and stuff this week. And in that algorithm, like, when YouTube, if you listen to music, it'll make like a mix for you. And on the mix they made after Once Upon a Time was the cover of Jamie, originally by Weezer, but Dashboard did a cover of it. I think it was an album that was done in the early 2000s. A lot of different bands did Weezer covers. And I first heard this song, I forget which birthday it was. My best friend Nick made me a CD, and this was on it. It's Jamie by Dashboard Professional. One of my favorite Weezer songs, but here is it's a rare instance that I like the cover better than the original. I love Weezer. Weezer is one of my all-time favorite bands, and I love Jamie, the song Jamie, but I love Dashboard Confessional's version better. I like it better. I think it's a better version of the song. I'm a huge Dashboard fan, so obviously I like his style. But listen to this cover. To me, it's a lot better. I'm sorry, and there's not many covers out there that are. I don't think there's really any covers out there that are better than the original. Maybe you could like them for different reasons, different styles, but this is kind of done in the same style and the same like you have. I'll give you an example. The song "Proud Mary," originally by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Tina Turner, Ike and Tina did it, but they did a different version of the song. I mean, I love Creedence's version, just being a regular, being a good rock song. And then what Ike and Tina did with it is like, it goes nice and slow in the beginning, and bam, it's into this like, fast paced action. And I wouldn't say I like one better than the other because I could appreciate it, but on this one, I'm like, yeah, I like Dashboards better. I know I'm in the minority here with this because I've said it before, and people are like, nah, you're out of your mind. But just get a chance to listen to both songs. Listen to Weezer's version, then listen to Dashboards. Go back and forth a couple of times if you have to, and let me know what you think. I honestly think Dashboards is better. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Today I saw on Instagram that now I think this album this album was a huge influence on my musical taste in my life. Um I think there's few albums in your life that you listen to that like change everything. And I'm not saying because it was the best album ever. Listen, I think it's the best. I think this is one of the best punk rock albums ever. But it's not necessarily my favorite. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's the best album of all time, but it's just definitely one of those albums that you listen to and it just changes everything for you. It's a game changer. And that's Punk and Drublic by NOFX. And it came out 32 years ago today, 1994. And I remember this album because my cousin Joe, when he got his license in his car, when this came out, he only played this in his car for like 3 months straight. Nothing but this album. And when I heard it, it was like nothing I ever heard before. I was into at that time in the early 90s. I mean, I listened to Green Day. I didn't think of them as punk rock. I didn't really know punk rock. I was into like Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, a lot of the rock that was on MTV, the grunge stuff. And I heard this, and I was like, "Oh, I this is amazing. I need to be all about this." Like, I can't. I've never heard music like this before. It's just like fast paced, and the lyrics were really good. Songs were catchy, and I didn't get tired of hearing it. I literally heard it every day in my cousin's car for at least 3 months in a row. And it wasn't until the next year in 1995, I was in a computer class and I met my friend Barry, who was also how I kind of became really good friends with Nick, because Nick and Barry were good friends. And he asked me what I was listening to on my Discman. I said NoFX. And he named like a couple of bands. He's like, "Do you like these bands?" I'm like, "I've never heard of them." He's like, "How have you never heard of them? If you like NoFX and you have to like this." I'm like, "Well, I don't know. I know this because my cousin listens to it." And that's kind of how I got into punk rock. Barry started making me tapes and having me buy compilations, and that's how I found Lagwagon, No Use for a Name, the Bouncing Souls, all these bands, and the Bouncing Souls, who became my favorite band. It all stemmed from this one album. And Green Day 2 is different than anything I ever heard, and that's how I got into punk rock and ska, and I guess emo after that. And it's great you listen to that one album that will change the trajectory of your tastes. I still love rock and roll. I still love grunge and some metal, and you know anything that sounds good. I listen to. I like rap. I like a lot of rap. I like a lot of pop music. I like Taylor Swift. If it sounds good, I listen to it. I don't care. And that's the great thing about being almost 47 too. I don't care. I'm not trying to impress anybody with my music taste. In school, you try to you'd play your music loud, and you try to this is what I listen to. But now that I'm older, I don't care. I just want to listen to some good music on the drive home and to work, back and forth. But NoFX was, yeah, it was my introduction to punk rock and the whole Epitaph label, and then the Fat Records. I bought the compilation. Which was it? I think Survival of the Fattest, and I heard Diesel Boy on that for the first time. High Standard, Lagwagon, um, so many good bands, and I just started like listening to those. But No Use for a Name, and I just started like buying those albums, and going to Utopia to find these albums with my friends on the weekends. Like those are the good times. Those are the memories I have. And I can't believe that it's 32 years that album came out today. I just have like sense memory of sitting in my cousin's car listening to that album over and over again. It's a great album. It still holds up today. You know, I still listen to that. At least once a month. It's just that that good music. And I started going to the Warp Tours in like '97, and I had a good run going to shows. I talked a little bit about going to punk rock shows on early episodes, and the mosh pits and things like that. And I've seen a lot of great bands, a lot of good shows. I've seen NoFX and Bouncing Souls together. Bouncing Souls opened up for NoFX at Tramps in New York City. That show was absolutely amazing. I ended up like standing next to the lead singer of Bouncing Souls, talking to him for a little bit while NoFX was on stage. Just good times. Going into the city with my friends, getting hammered. We get shit faced, get on the train, go to the city, see a show, and come back. Rose's Pizza in Penn Station. If you know, you know. It's good times. And I listen to these songs a lot. Because I haven't really put new music since 2007. So, um, I still listen to the same music, that I did, and my tastes haven't changed. A couple of new things will come in. I listen to it, like I mentioned, Taylor Swift. She's newer, obviously, but like newer stuff will come that my brother usually he's the one that now introduces me to different music because he's got an amazing taste in music. My brother, I'll give him credit for that. His playlists are phenomenal, and it's a mixture of everything. It's everything from punk rock to rap, hard, pop music, everything in between. It's his playlists are fantastic. That's one of the fun parts too, sitting out in the backyard listening to music and stuff. I was out there with my brothers this weekend a lot. I was there Friday, we sat outside, had a good time. Saturday it poured here. Absolutely. We had crazy rain here on Long Island. Absolutely crazy rain. I actually wanted to shoot a YouTube video, like going around to like, to a coffee shop or something, like sitting outside having coffee and a cigar, and do a coffee review, but it was just a downpour here. So we hunkered down inside. My sister-in-law made a phenomenal dinner Saturday night. She made gavadels and pesto with the fresh basilico from the garden, fresh basil from the garden, sausage and peppers, and some nice Italian bread to mop with afterwards. I like to mop up my sauce afterwards. When I was done with the plate, when I was mopping with the bread, it looked like a brand new plate, like no one was eating on it. That's how much I like to mop. I remember one time I my company holiday was I was working for AT&T. The company holiday party we had at the Coral House here on Long Island. It's a very nice wedding hall type thing, and they served the full dinner. So they had the pasta dish came out, they had the macaroni, and it was it was penny alla vodka, which I love because. And one of the reasons I like penny alla vodka is afterwards you get the bread to mop with. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you something as a fat man. You put a piece of bread in front of me before the meal with butter. It's hard for me not to butter that bread and eat it. But this is where like my fat willpower kicked in. And I knew I was gonna have my plate of macaroni. And I knew there was gonna be the extra olive vodka sauce I could mop with the bread. So I saved it, which was hard because right away I want to just put butter on and eat the bread. And it was a sit down dinner, so it wasn't like there was, wasn't like a bread basket on the table. Everybody had the bread on the plate in front of them. And I stayed strong and I saved that bread. So I eat my macaroni, and the waiter was like stealth. He must have been hiding under the table because I went to go pour a glass of water, and by the time I turn around, my dish is gone. And my ex, who was with me at the time, she was like, I was in shock. I didn't even. It was so fast, and I was like, I had the piece of bread in my hand, like that's again, fat guy memory. I still think about that today. That's why I'll give credit to my, you know, my sister-in-law always makes enough macaroni with the sauce that I can mop with. So thank you, Trudy. The kids all know too. Right away they're eating their bread and they always go, Uncle Cheese saves his bread because he likes to, dip it into the sauce. That's right. The mop with the bread. But it was a great weekend, my brothers with food and family and everything. Today my brother made homemade pizza with some leftover skirt steak that he had and peppers and onions. Delicious. Absolutely delicious. So we ate good. And I like when we, Sunday dinners, or just even like, my sister-in-law makes like macaroni and stuff like that, cuz it reminds me of like growing up. We always had Sunday dinners. My grandmother made dinner every Sunday, and Tuesday nights her brother would come over, my uncle Sammy, and we'd have, again, we'd have macaroni and meatballs, and she made, my grandmother made eggplant, and it was family, the family getting together and sitting around a table, eating, having a good time, laughing. And I look at that, I very fondly, I really do. Um, I was telling my dad about it the other night. We were talking, the how much that meant growing up like that. I think it's important that families sit down for dinner every night. I really do. I'm not married. I don't have kids, but not that I do it now. I sit in front of the television and eat. But growing up, my mother always we always had dinner together. My father was we were talking on Friday night, just about how it's different now. Like, both parents have to work most cases. Shit's expensive. We live it's like a crazy, everything's so expensive. It's hard for one to be a one family income house. I mean, one income family. It's hard. It's hard. My mother stayed home. She didn't go back to work full time until I was in eighth grade. And my father said, he worked a lot of hours, but he always came home, made sure that, like, threw the ball with us a little bit, did fun things together on the weekends. And we always did things. And I said, one of the things that we also did was we had dinner together. All of us as a family, all four of us, my dad, my mom, my brother, we sat down and we had dinner together. And I think that's very important. I think it's very important for children to do that. Um, and families that do it, awesome. It's I think it's an important thing that should not be lost. I know people are very busy now with work and all these other things, but to just sit down and have a meal together, how was your day, blah blah blah. It keeps the family intact. And that's one of the, it's a great memory I have growing up. That every night we sat at the table, we laughed, we talked, and thinking about summers growing up too. Like, after dinner, my parents would sit outside with a cup of coffee on the stoop. I grew up on a great block. I had a dead end right across from me, so there was a lot of kids, and we were out every night, playing manhunt, playing ghosts in the graveyard, catching fireflies. All the things that you think of, like, remember when. That was my childhood. Or just sitting on the stoop with my parents, hanging out and talking. It, it was great. I think, and I'm part of it. I am part of the problem. I am a social media whore myself. I do a podcast that gets put all over social media. But we rely a lot on social media. We rely a lot on screens. And, I think we got to get back to getting outside a little bit, a little 90s style, 80s and 90s. Tell you some of the best memories I have was being outside, the adults laughing, chatting it up, drinking coffee on the stoop, us running around like idiots. Come on, what was better than that? I love summers growing up. And when I got a little older, I was like, my nephew's age now, like, between, 13 and through high school. Me and my friends would go play stickball every day, or basketball, or football. We always were playing sports. We're always out there, I see these kids now. It's all about these stupid fucking e-bikes. My nephew was obsessed with getting one, and, like, it's illegal. First of all, you have to be 16 to have one, and secondly, they drive them like morons. I see it all the time. Kids getting airlifted to hospitals or hit by a car, or worse, they get killed because they ride these bikes. They have no idea what they're doing. They're just going off into the road. I see when I'm driving around too. Like, I stop at a stop sign. All of a sudden, like these kids, like fly out. You got to remember, you're on a vehicle that's going 30 miles an hour. It's dangerous. They don't wear helmets. That's just the stupidest thing ever. You're on like it's not a motorcycle, but it's an electric bike. You're going like 30 miles an hour. Put a helmet on. You're not cool if you don't wear one. It's not cool. Yeah, it's cool to be safe and be alive. That's what's cool. Yeah, man, missing those summers growing up. It's a lot of nostalgia. And maybe it's because like, I've been thinking I July is a tough month for me. As I mentioned before, the day my mom passed away and her birthday's the same month. My mom's birthday is the 7th. The day she passed away is the 21st. So on Tuesday, it's going to be 18 years. And I think back a lot and I reminisce. And, you can't help it. So I've been thinking about these things a lot more. And just the whole thing this weekend with the music and everything just tied in. And it's a great time. I grew up I have so many memories. Like I thank my father actually. I'm like, I grew up with so many great memories and like so many good things to talk about. You know, it's it was awesome. It was an absolute awesome time, and anyway. So to recap the episode, check out Robert Bradley's Blackwater Surprise. Once Upon a Time. Listen to that song, please. Go back also compare the two versions of Jamie Weezer and Dashboard Confessional. And if you haven't yet, listen to NoFX Punk and Drublic, the album that for me got me into the music that would shape the rest of my life. I want to thank everybody who joined us this episode, who's been joining us on all the episodes, who's been clicking the link to buy me a coffee. I want to thank you for that. I have a link there, buy me a coffee. It helps keep the lights on, so to speak. Thank you. Also for following us on Instagram over at Comic Anthony D. I'm going to change that name soon. I'm thinking about it. I just have to think of something, but we'll do it soon. Also, the podcast is available on all podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Apple. We're available on YouTube. Subscribe at YouTube, youtube.com at the go-to pod. Once again, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. Have an awesome week, and I will talk to you later.